Greetings, all you Palukus, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch. Season 2! My name is Fletcher, about to say hello is Data.
Yo.
Today we're going to recap, discuss, and rate Season 2, Episode 3, The Siege. Alternate title, and I'm almost too embarrassed. Kai Hard.
Okay. Yeah, I see that one. I was thinking like Lee Nallis and the Last Crusade.
That's pretty much as good. I was racking my brain for Die Hard puns for so long, and that's all I could come up with.
Well, I guess since this is the third episode, it would be like Kai Hard with a Vengeance.
Ooh. I should have thrown that in. That would have made it a little bit more interesting.
Man, that should have been the name of the podcast. Kai Hard with a Vengeance.
A quick note on spoilers in case our rewatch is your first watch. Expect full spoilers through this episode, of course, and an appropriate minimum of minor spoilers for later in the series, but nothing too big, like when Odo whispers, "Hail Hydra" to Sisko. I found that to be a pretty shocking twist. That was the season 5 finale, I believe.
I was gonna say it's that I didn't realize that like the show overlapped with the MCU quite that much.
Oh yeah, I mean this is way ahead of its time. I also want to talk about what a generic title The Siege is.
You're not wrong.
It's not even the only Deep Space Nine episode called The Siege.
Oh really?
There's one called...
there's like the Siege of such and such, like some planet name. That's right.
Yeah. I was going to do a quick Google search to see like episodes called The Siege. But I was too lazy. Like, The Siege episode.
The Siege of AR-558 is that? That's why I couldn't remember the name of that because it's so...
Yep. There's a Mandalorian episode called The Siege.
Okay.
Google heavily favors The Mandalorian, apparently. But I feel like every TV show I've ever watched at some point has an episode called The Siege.
Well, the thing was, this didn't even really feel like a siege. Like the bad guys just showed up and took over.
Yeah.
And then there was it was really more akin to Die Hard.
Playing kind of fast and loose with the definition of a siege. Usually in a siege, the guys are outside.
Yeah.
And you're inside, like, trying to keep them out.
I mean, I guess technically Die Hard had siege qualities because the police were outside, but
sure, this
had not even that going for it.
Yep.
So
there's also a movie called The Siege. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yes, I'm familiar with that. I feel like I saw it a very long time ago. It's
notable just for its very eerie plot. It came out before 9/11, but it's about a Muslim terror attack that leads to a crackdown on Muslim civil liberties. So it was very ahead of its time, I'd say. Very prescient.
Because that was like a 90s film, right?
Yeah, I think like 90s or 2000.
98. It had Denzel Washington, Bruce Willis, Tony Shalhoub. Man, that's some good...
I do remember it had Tony Shalhoub. I don't know why this... You know how some movies just have a scene that sticks in your head for no reason?
Sure.
There's just a scene where, like, this lady runs her fingers through Tony Shalhoub's hair or whatever, and she's just like, "I love Lebanese men." I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, this episode originally aired October 10th, 1993. It was written by Michael Piller and directed by good old Vinrich Kolbe.
Sure.
Who directed the Season 2 premiere, if you'll remember. Summary. With Circle forces closing in on DS9, Sisko addresses all the Starfleet officers on the station and tells them that if anybody wants to leave, they should. Predictably, everyone chooses to stay. Also, I kind of suspect some of these guys might be played by, like, writers or producers or something, because it's kind of like a weird-looking bunch. I don't know. Or maybe they were just general extras.
Yeah, I don't know. Now I want to go and see if I can find some names here.
I should have seen if the Morn guy was one of them, but whatever.
He does tend to show up places.
He lays out the plan for the episode, which is to hold on to the station for as long as possible until they can present evidence to the Bajoran ministers that the Circle is being armed by the Cardassians.
By which they mean give up the station without a fight and then, like, harry the invaders. Which doesn't seem like the same thing to me, but whatever.
Yeah, I got the impression from the last episode that their plan was to force a confrontation. But this works too, whatever.
Okay, so I'm looking at the list of uncredited co-stars. Majel Barrett is the narrator, which I guess is for the previous on, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely made mental note of that.
There's several people just listed as sciences officer or operations officer, so I'm guessing that's these people. Command Lieutenant, Bajoran woman, Starfleet sciences officer, as opposed to just sciences officer.
Sure.
Okay, let's see if any of these people have anything going for them. Background actor, stand-in photo double. Background actor, photo double. Oh man, yeah, that guy has been in the background lunch. He's uncredited in All Good Things. Uncredited in Chain of Command Part 2 because he was the hand double for someone.
Oh boy.
Oh man. Oh yeah, this guy, this background actor is all over the place. I feel like I've seen him a lot. Oh, and he's a Klingon at some point, so good for him.
Nice. I guess they just must have like a corral of extras to use for these situations.
Yep. Background actor / stand-in.
You know, like Morns. Much less recognizable Morns.
I like this guy apparently shows up on Deep Space Nine. Chuck Shanks shows up as both a Bajoran and a Starfleet officer at various times. Always uncredited, it appears.
Oh, of course.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So, yeah, anyway, the revelation of Cardassian involvement will presumably immediately cause the coup to collapse. That's the logic we're operating under, and the episode does nothing to argue with that, so...
Well, I mean, given that the logic is like, so this is what the Cardassians want to happen, which means that they're like preparing to just come in and take us over. Then
Ignore the fact that it's the obvious conclusion to this coup, no matter what, is that the Cardassians will come back.
That's the real problem, is that like no one seems to be considering the fact that even if the Cardassians weren't engineering it, then why do you have the Federation there in the first place? Oh, right, because...
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like wormhole minus Federation equals Cardassians come back. It's a very obvious equation. Watching the evacuation preparations and noting there's not enough room on the runabouts for everyone, Quark schemes with Rom to use the crisis for profit.
I wish I could say I was surprised, but...
Yeah. Quark has been having some ups and downs so far this season. I think he's been... slapped around so much, I think he's just like in full...
Yeah, he gets all choked on this episode too, so...
Yeah. Nog and Jake say farewell in a scene that once again would be way more impactful if we actually believed the situation wasn't going to be resolved by the end of the episode. Chief O'Brien and Keiko pack and have the typical "why can't you come with us" argument. I mean, they did have little Molly back, so that was fun.
Yeah.
She's like a pretty good actor for her age.
Yeah, she got line and all sorts of stuff.
With all subspace frequencies jammed and the runabouts tied up in the evacuation, the DS9 officers and Lee devise a plan to drop Kira and Dax off at an abandoned Bajoran resistance moon base at an old... Holy moly. At an abandoned Bajoran resistance moon base... to find an old ship they can fly down to the planet to hand-deliver the Cardassian involvement evidence to the ministers.
Yeah, it seems like you should have been able to, like, if the runabout could swing by a moon of Bajor, then couldn't it just, like, swing slightly closer and beam down?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, but I'm just going to let the episode tell me that that's what they need to do.
Because Sisko even says, it's like, oh, well, a runabout can handle those guys, but I can't give you one.
I think maybe part of the problem is that there's going to be civilians on the runabout.
That's true.
So they want to minimize risk.
I mean, we're not there yet, but they seem to fit like a ridiculous number of people on the runabout. Yeah. And I'm just like, I've seen those runabouts. It's not, they keep talking about seats as if it's like an airliner, but it's not. I don't know.
That was my reaction as well, is how many people can fit on a runabout? You can apparently only beam 2 people up at once, so...
And really, it kind of begs the question of, did the Federation not plan? Is this the Titanic where the Federation did not plan well enough for a potential evacuation because of some emergency situation here?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, maybe there's no like escape system. I don't know, but these are the rules that we've established. And I have to say that some of the stuff that happens in this episode was not very clear to me, even when I went back and like rewatched the scenes. So this recap is my best approximation of what I think was going on.
Okay.
So Quark is dragged into ops by Odo, and it soon becomes clear that Quark straight up sold fake runabout tickets to the desperate people trying to get off the station.
No, he slightly overbooked, which is an accepted Ferengi transport whatever.
I think his definition of slightly overbooked is very generous to him.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to blame him given that like that is also something that airlines in the US do and are fine with. It's like, oh yeah, we're allowed to overbook, but I'm pretty sure not by that much.
But I mean, at least the airline owns the airplane and can issue tickets on it.
That's true, yep.
I mean, he's basically just scalping fake tickets on the runabouts. So Sisko goes down to the airlock to address the panicky people with little success. But Lee Nowlis shows up and delivers a rousing speech to his fellow Bajorans not to leave the home they fought so hard for. This clears up the crowd and allows Morn to board the runabout in peace, carrying a pink pillowcase full of what I assume is all his stuff.
Yep, I was noticing Morn there for sure.
Yeah. Like, he's in the background of like that whole speech, like holding his little ticket in his hand or whatever.
He's like watching Lee Nowlis really intently, and it's just like, okay, this doesn't apply to me. Can I get on the?
Yeah, it's clear it's clear his thought process is, okay, can I get on now, or
excuse me, can I just squeeze through? It's a good speech by Lee Nowlis. I like that they gave him a little something to actually do before spoiler killing him off,
carrying through his character arc a little bit. Very nice. Right behind Morn is Jake, whom Sisko sees off and gives a letter, which is presumably, full of fatherly advice or whatever. And Quark with all his ill-gotten latinum, but it turns out that Rom gave Quark's seat away to a Dabo girl. in a fun little twist. That Rom, he's shiftier than he lets on.
The second time he's tried to arrange for Quark to die.
He's like, oh boy, I can't wait for my dear brother to be hung. Or hanged on the promenade. Soon after the runabouts depart, a Bajoran military commando team boards the station, led by General Krim. Dun dun dun. Also some guy named Colonel Day that we've never seen before.
A guy who I will never not be able to see as the guy from Wings. Yeah. And so I'm just like, the whole episode, I'm like, you're supposed to be funnier than this guy from Wings. What are you doing?
He is such a that guy. Like, I'm sure he's been on every single murder mystery show as the guy who did it at some point. But they find the station apparently abandoned by Starfleet. We pan up to a vent and see Sisko, O'Brien, and Lee hiding in a duct. On a Bajoran moon, Kira and Dax wade through a sea of spider webs, or possibly Paluku webs.
Yeah, maybe.
And find a dusty old Bajoran resistance ship, which they get to work repairing. Through this entire story, Dax misses no opportunity to complain. Back on Deep Space Nine, the Bajoran boarding party finds the internal security net completely disabled. General Krim is particularly worried about the whereabouts of Odo. Nevertheless, Colonel Day quickly phones up Minister Jaro and reports a complete success. General Krim is like, no, wait, this is clearly some kind of setup.
And at least Minister Jaro has the sense to be like, no, yeah, you've got good points there.
Yeah. Well, Jaro's like, okay, whatever. Just if you find Lee Nowlis, don't kill him, because we need him for a political pawn.
Yep. I'm not sure I understand they're just like, oh, obviously it'll be super easy to convince him to side with us. And if we kill him, he's a martyr. But if we keep him alive, then our victory is assured. And I'm like,
right.
well, wow.
Well, it's like, I will promise him whatever he wants. It's like, so is your plan just to be like, what do you want? And then whatever he says, give that to him?
I will bribe you. What bribe would you like? And then he's like, except for becoming Kai, of course.
Yeah, that would be funny if he's like, what do you want? He's like, I want to be Kai. Then Jaro hangs up and reassures Win of his plan to make the Vedics elect her Kai. So his plan is to just tell the Vedics.
Yep.
So you need to elect her Kai.
I also like that through this whole process, they're apparently just hanging out together.
Yeah. She's just kind of like in the background. Kind of like being his hype man or whatever.
I'm scrolling through this guy's IMDb because we were just talking about how he's like probably in lots of stuff. He is, in fact, in lots and lots of stuff. But my favorite was, as I was scrolling through, is the time in something called Being Bin Laden, where he played Osama Bin Laden. And I'm like, yeah. Seems like an odd choice, but okay.
Very good. Yeah, that guy definitely has Osama Bin Laden vibes. I looked at that guy, I was like, whoa, that's like Osama Bin Laden's twin brother. Is it like a cartoon or something? Maybe he just did the voice?
That's a good question. Okay, let's find out more about Being Bin Laden. Speaking of cartoons, though, he plays Charlie B. Barkin in All Dogs Go to Heaven, the series, and All Dogs Christmas Carol. What about the original All Dogs Go to Heaven? Is he... There's
an All Dogs Go to Heaven series? You know what? I think I actually vaguely remember that.
37 episodes, it says.
That wasn't a Disney thing, was it?
I don't think so. I don't recall that being a Disney thing. No, apparently he was not that dog in the original All Dogs Go to Heaven. So, okay. Let's see. Being Bin Laden. No, there's not that much detail on this. Okay, it was a web series pilot is the only detail on IMDb here.
Huh. I can't believe that it didn't take off.
It had Fred Savage as Alan Goldstein.
What? And
that else I recognize?
That Fred Savage, he just pops up places. Anyway, Krim tries to patiently explain today that they... Krim tries to patiently explain to Colonel Day that they have the numerical advantage and should not give that up by splitting their forces into search parties. Suddenly the lights go out as Chief O'Brien's sneaky sabotage campaign continues. Day announces to Krim that he's going to just ignore his wishes and send out search parties anyway.
Yep. Immediately, like, okay, set up some search parties, and I guess the general's like, whatever then.
Yeah. So this shows that, I guess, generals don't outrank colonels in this military.
Or something, yes. I don't know. They have a really weird relationship here where the general constantly seems to just suggest things or, like, make comments, and the colonel is the one who actually seems to give all the orders. So I was like, is there some weird, like, does the colonel report directly to, like, Jaro or something and he's in charge, and so they're kind of going around the general, or why is this working the way it is working?
There could be this elaborate backstory where Colonel Day was Jaro's man inside the military command.
Yeah.
And then he kind of, like, recruited the general.
He could be Jaro's, like, nephew or something, too, just...
Oh, true. Yeah, something like that. We cut to all the Starfleet officers huddled in the plasma conduits and out of their uniforms for some reason.
Yeah, I thought about that. That was my first thought when we see them, is that why aren't they wearing their uniforms? And then I then thought, like, well, maybe, like, in case they have to, be seen, like, they could just be facing away from the bad guys, and then the bad guys wouldn't know whether they were Bajoran or human right off, because you can't see the nose ridges. Whereas if you were wearing your Starfleet uniform, then you would be very obvious. Okay.
So it could have some stealth advantages, I guess, yeah. They get word that a Bajoran search party is... Oh, wait, first, O'Brien hands out Starfleet Limbus bread.
Yep.
Let's not skip that. Then they get word that a Bajoran search party is near Dr. Bashir's group, and are quickly able to capture it, exactly as General Krim predicted.
Yup. Like, I almost feel like you should have been like, okay, you're going to send search parties, I'm going to send, like, a backup party with each search party to, like, hide outside, so when they get jumped, then you can jump the people jumping them, because that is how predictable this is.
Or maybe instead of a bunch of little search parties, let's have some, like, bigger search parties.
Also, I love the debate on comms in the middle of, a very serious situation about how much everyone hates the rations. I was just like, is this really the thing that you should be doing?
Yeah, apparently the writers just felt like there was no rush to get on with the action of the episode. Or
I liked the interaction. Don't get me wrong. Like I liked everything this did. I liked what it told us about O'Brien and Cisco and even Bashir. They all had fun stuff, but I'm just like, what if someone's like scanning frequencies for for your diehard walkie-talkie signal or whatever? Like, you should probably not be doing this.
Well, I think we're gonna have more to talk about in a little bit about these comm badges. But anyway, later a gunfight breaks out on the promenade, and Odo turns into a tripwire.
That did happen. I wasn't entirely clear on why the gunfight broke out. It was just like...
Yeah, I was very... like, O'Brien and somebody were...
It was Lenalis, I believe.
They were like... they were trying to sabotage something, or rip a component out of a panel or something.
Yeah, to me it looked like they were just hanging out there, out in the open, and then these guys spotted them, and I'm like, but you know that these guys are looking for you, right? So... at the very least, shouldn't you have a lookout or something instead of no one paying attention and then they get to shoot at you?
Yeah. And then they have to call... I was not clear... It was not a very clearly laid out battle.
And then, to help them escape from the security office, a guy brings out the biggest smoke bomb in the history of, like, smoke grenades.
It's like a big orb that,
it is so huge.
Emits, like... dry iced smoke or something, but it worked. Gotta give him credit for that.
I was like, I'm pretty sure you could just go to the army surplus store and get an actual smoke grenade, and like it would look better than this.
Yeah, I'm sure they had to like rig up something that would like you had to hide a hose inside of or something.
Oh yeah, okay, that's a fair point.
After this, another group of Bajorans, led by Colonel Day, are lured into a very obvious trap in one of Quark's holosuites.
Super obvious trap. Like, let's rush into the holosuite. Nothing could possibly go wrong.
Do you not understand how holosuites work? What is your problem?
And, of course, for the audience, like, our crew is back in their Starfleet uniforms. So it's instantly like, we
I didn't even think about that. I just looked at them and was like, that's fake.
But I felt like... I don't know if it was missed opportunity or not. I was 100% expecting, like, you lock them in there and then it would initiate some sort of program that makes it all a hologram and they think they're escaping, but they're not really or something. Or, like, you drop them in a maze.
They think they're fighting a battle with just, like, an endless number of, like, Federation people. And it's
Where
just
do these guys keep coming from?
Yeah. That probably would have been a little bit too much to fit into this episode, but
when Colonel Day gets transported out, I was just like, oh, I mean, come on, that's got to be fake, right? Like, A, how would they know that Colonel Day is in trouble and needs to be transported out? And B, like, you're in a holosuite. This is fake, right? But no, it just turns out that part's real. They left the other 4 guys in there and got Day out.
Exactly. But while they're in the holosuite, Cisco uses this opportunity to try to explain about the Cardassian involvement, which Day denounces as Federation lies. Then Day gets beamed out somehow, for some reason, without his friends.
Yeah, without calling for help or anything. I guess, story-wise, those other 4 guys have to stay in there, or they might have reported to the general what Cisco said, and Day very specifically does not tell him.
So that's why the writers did it.
Yeah.
But that still doesn't explain why it happened in the logic of the story, or even how. But anyway, the Bajoran... Oh, first of all, Day does not, as you mentioned, pass on the info about the Cardassians to Krim. The Bajorans get the security net back online, but can't detect the Starfleet communicators, which leads them to deduce that they must be in the plasma conduits, where apparently they can't be detected despite being completely functional.
And despite the fact that we have seen the sensors detect things inside the plasma conduits before, hearkening back to that time when O'Brien was looking for that piece of metal and they found, like, the dead guy.
I'm 99% sure we have seen them many times detect comm badges in the plasma conduits. But whatever. So the Bajorans begin flooding the conduits with gas. Sisko and O'Brien worry about not having heard from Kira and Dax yet. Sisko says they may need to use Lee to convince the generals of what's going on. Lee is reluctant as usual, but Sisko reminds him of the character arc he's supposed to be on.
Yeah, he gives him the speech about, you got to do the thing.
It's like, okay, I'm going to give you this speech for like the 4th time. It's like, you are supposed to sacrifice yourself and be this symbol for the people. And Lee's like, oh, right, yeah, that.
Oh, but I like Lee's whole thing about, like, I would die for my planet, but I don't want to do this. I don't want to talk to people. And Sisko's like, yeah, dying lets you off the hook.
Yep. Which is subverted at the end of the episode.
Foreshadowing.
It's foreshadowing that Lee will have to make the hard decision and not sacrifice himself. But anyway, we'll get to that. Back on Bajor, Kira and Dax barely make it out of a battle with Circle forces and wind up crashing on the planet. A wounded Kira gives the evidence to Dax to take to the ministers. Luckily, they crashed right outside Bareil's monastery. And I guess Wynn's not there anymore to, spy on what's going on. He takes them in, tends to Kira's injuries, and gives them religious outfits they can wear to travel safely to the ministers. Also, Dax somehow has, a Bajoran disguise.
Yeah, they got fake Bajoran noses just hanging around.
Yeah.
I of course Wynn's not there anymore. She's hanging around in the background of Minister Jaro's every move.
Yeah. Once in the chamber, they present their evidence, which Jaro denies, but Wynn immediately dumps him.
I think I'm not sure if she sees the writing on the wall as far as, well, clearly this isn't going to work. Like, Kira wouldn't show up and lie about this. So, if this is true, then I don't know if she's like, well, I can't side with this guy because if this is true, it'll bring us both down. Or if it's more, wait, if this is true, then we definitely don't want to do this and have the Cardassians back.
True. Could be column A and B. Who knows? Who knows with Wynn what she's thinking?
It's true.
I think just in her mind, she always has to do the sneakiest, most underhanded thing possible.
Yeah, okay. I buy that.
She's like, what would be the most, disloyal, sneaky way I could handle this situation?
Well, to be fair, she's very public about turning on Jaro on a dime.
Right, but I don't think she declared herself as his ally by that point.
And, I mean, it's hard to argue with her changing sides when clearly his side is a bad idea.
Yeah, I know. As we've said, it doesn't even matter if the Cardassians are running guns to them. It's just a bad idea. Okay, so this next part really confuses me. So Colonel Day shows up back at Ops.
So, in the meantime, Lean Alice has, snuck in to talk to the general in his ready room somehow.
Oh, yeah, well, okay. Yeah, so first of all, I don't know if we talked about this part yet. They set up a distraction which gets Colonel Day out of Ops, along with most of the troops. Then they ambush General Krim in his office. And then Colonel Day shows back up at Ops with Bashir and Quark held prisoner. But it's not clear if Krim somehow regained control of Ops or what's going on. Because nobody makes any acknowledgement of the situation. And nobody makes any moves to disarm Day or the other Bajoran guy who's with him with a phaser.
Yeah, no, I don't think they took over anything. I think that it was well, for one thing, it was funny that he's like, bring me the leaders. And he shows up with Bashir and Quark. And I was like, really? Quark was one of the leaders? But
yeah.
Quark didn't even want to go. But no, I think that they just show up to talk to the general. They were not trying to conquer Ops while no one was paying attention. Because they weren't gonna take the thing by force. They knew that was not a long-term plan that was gonna work. So they were like, we have to convince the general, otherwise we're done.
Okay, so you think they said their piece to him and then just surrendered?
Yeah.
Whatever?
Or, I mean, if they actually convinced him, and then he seems to have already called to, confirm this information and heard what was going on in the Chamber of Ministers. So, at that point, he's like, they don't have to surrender to him. He's just like, oh, okay.
Okay. So, yeah, anyway, Krim is mad that Colonel Day didn't tell him about the Cardassian thing. And he turns to Sisko and says, "Boy, I sure have egg on my face. I guess you can have the station back."
Yep.
This enrages Colonel Day, who tries to shoot Sisko.
For some reason.
Why not?
Like, I don't know what you think randomly committing murder is going to get you at this point, but okay.
But Lee, in complete defiance of his character arc, jumps in front of him and takes the shot. With his dying breath, he tells Sisko, "Haha, now I don't have to do all those difficult things you've been building me up to do."
It was great. What are you talking about?
Later in Quarks, Kira is sad about the death of Lee. She leaves, and O'Brien is like, "I don't see what the big deal is. The guy didn't seem that great."
I mean, she has this big, long speech about, like, man, you thought now that he was here, he was going to save us all. And I'm with O'Brien. I was like, did you meet this guy? Like, seriously.
But, Sisko's like, "Dude, have you been paying attention at all these last 3 episodes?" Like, it's the actual man is not important. It's the legend. But anyway, they go down to the airlock to greet their returning families. Morn is not seen returning, and his pink pillowcase is now being carried by an old lady for some reason.
Well, and I mean, we know, I don't know if we know before now that Morn is like a trader and has a ship that he trades on, or if that's like spoiler for the future.
Uh-huh.
But I'm like, why does Morn need to be on a runabout? Like,
yeah.
His ship's docked here, right?
I mean, maybe he's worried that he couldn't survive an encounter with the Circle.
You just go the other way.
Attack ships.
Like, they were still hours away.
Or maybe his ship is being repaired or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's someone else is using the ship. Who knows? We never know what's going on with Morn. We can only speculate.
It's true. Maybe he doesn't have a ship yet at this point. Maybe I'm spoiling things, but
yeah, I definitely don't think the writers have like fleshed out this whole story for Morn yet.
So there's a funny bit from the wiki about exactly what you were talking about, where like the producer Peter Allen Fields did not like the whole Lee Nellis dying thing.
Uh-huh.
He says he felt like it trivialized the events of the Homecoming, and he says, "It seemed to me that killing him would just send us back to square one. Why spend 3 episodes with this guy and then let him die? You're back to as if he'd never been around. We could have written the whole thing without him." And meanwhile, Ira Stephen Bear says that no, there were 2 really good reasons for killing this character. One, it completes the arc. There had to be a moment of true sacrifice and heroism so that this guy went from, I was just a guy living a lie, and then like gave himself up for his world to become a public figure, and then actually made like a true self-sacrifice.
Yeah, but his self-sacrifice is supposed to be like giving up on his own dreams or whatever to become this symbol for the rest of Bajor or whatever.
And then the second reason is the producers did not want to make him a recurring character because they didn't think they'd be able to afford to bring back Richard Bamer in the future.
Well, I mean, just don't bring him back. Like, just have people say, it's like, have some random guy walk in and he's like, "Hey, I was just talking to Navark Lee and he said this."
Yeah.
I mean, writers have been doing this stuff since TV existed. So I felt like this ending felt really abrupt. Like the writers were kind of having fun writing this Die Hard episode and all their little like Limbus bread scenes and stuff. And then they're like, "Oh wait, we got to resolve this." They show up and then General Krim just surrenders. Like they didn't even like push him off the building or anything.
It made sense to me because as soon as they get the scanners back online, it's like, okay, well, we now have a clock on how long our people are going to last. Because O'Brien's right. Like, it would be dumb of them not to instantly start flooding the conduits with gas. Honestly, I think you just, like, if you think you've got rats in the walls, you go into ops, you make sure there's nobody there, and then you flood the rest of the station with gas real quick. And, and you go from there. But, assuming you don't want to, like, incapacitate a bunch of innocent Bajorans, then fine. So, it's...
Yeah.
Like, once they're backed into a corner, they really don't have a lot of plays they can make. They could try to, like, decapitate the leadership by taking ops by force, but other than that, I think that, like, Cisco's right. Like this was the play that they could make, and then they make it, and it works. So I didn't feel like it was like out of nowhere or anything.
Well, I didn't think it was out of nowhere. It just felt like all of a sudden we have to wrap this all up like right now. So it's like, okay, then they get to the Chamber of Ministers, and then it's like the foregone conclusion that we've been building up to happens all at once. So I just would have liked if it had a little room to breathe, I guess.
The last episode had too much room to breathe, so I feel like maybe we could have spread it all out a little more or something and given this one some. But I think that as the climax to like this 3-part thing, that it makes sense that this one is kind of like all go.
Yeah. For sure. And I like the general structure of the episode where we basically have 2 storylines. One is Dax and Kira on their mission, and then back on Deep Space Nine, they just like do whatever they can to hold on until that mission is successful.
And the very small C story of Quark and his adventure in commerce.
Yeah. Which, that didn't even... did Quark ever... Whatever happened to Quark's Latinum? Did we ever even find out? I assume he got it. I think he got away with all of it.
I mean, he had to leave it in the tube at that one point, but I assumed that he could easily go back and get it later. Unless
it's not like the gas killed his Latinum or something.
Right. Bashir, like, whispered to, like, one of his friends, like, hey, quick, before Quark gets back there, go get that Latinum.
Sneaky Bashir.
It could happen. Okay, see, that transitions me into my feelings that I want to talk about on the episode overall here.
Okay.
Because Bashir is an example of how, like, I feel like this episode is giving me all of the things that I asked for from the previous season that I was upset that we weren't seeing. Because, like, I mean, we get scenes with Bashir where he's not annoying and gross and or useless. Exactly. Like, O'Brien's even like, I mean, do we really want to send Bashir to be in charge of this thing? And he's a little bit, like, superior and sarcastic when he captures these guys, but I think it actually fits and it works for the moment and it fits his character. And he's doing that. He's in charge of the runabout boarding or whatever. And he gets to be like a competent, and even like he gets to show like that intelligence that we are supposed to associate with him, where he's like, I mean, actually, I invented, while I was at the academy, a candy bar that tastes way better than this and is like 3 times as nutritious. And I'm like, okay, see, this, like, Bashir is going to a place that I like, and he's not being creepy or weird or stupid.
Well, it's like little moments, but it's nice.
Yeah, exactly. And then I feel the same with Dax and Kira. Like, yes, Dax is complaining, but we're actually getting some character out of Dax for once. Sure. She's talking about her previous lives. She's scared of bugs. She's like got this determination, and I love the bits of her and Kira and her complaining about the ship, and Kira's like, oh, we'll just fly by the seat of our pants, and Dax is like, and then she's like, oh no, the weapons targeting systems don't work, and Kira's now we can't target, and Kira's like, yeah, we can, and Dax's like, yeah, I know, by the seat of our pants. It's like, no, don't use your pants, use your eyes. Like, I thought it was all good stuff. We're developing like a relationship with Dax and Kira, which other than like Cisco and maybe that really creepy thing with Bashir stalking her, like Dax hasn't had relationships with anyone else. So
yeah,
we're fleshing out these 2 characters, even if it's just a little bit. You're giving them some personality that's not horrible. And even like O'Brien gets a couple little moments, like when he calls the Cardassians the Cardies, and you're like, oh, remember, he doesn't like Cardassians. He's kind of racist against them because of his experiences.
Yeah, that was apparently not totally cured by his experience in that one episode of The Next Generation.
And Keiko even gets, I mean, she's still complaining, which seems to be what Keiko mostly does, and it's a reason that people don't like her. But in this episode, it's like, I get it. Like, I relate to what she is saying here, because she's like, the Federation is supposed to be evacuating. Why are you staying here to die instead of coming with us when you could easily come with us?
Yeah. I mean, that's because Cisco even gave him that out.
Yeah.
He was like, look, dudes with families totally should just leave the station with their families.
Yeah, and so I'm like, as opposed to her complaining about being bored and there's nothing to do for me to do here or whatever, or like my lesson plan. Like this is one where I'm like, oh no, she has a really good point here, and this is like a real, like this feels like an actual real family scene. And so in addition to all of that, these character stuff that I feel like they're doing really well in this episode, we've got more of the Bajoran politics. We've got more of, you know, how they react to the Cardassians, the kind of stuff that this show should be about, and that we complained in season 1 that it was being ignored. Like this 3-parter has done for us, and I feel like this part did especially well.
Yeah. I'd say mostly, like just the, just like I said, I feel the pacing is just a little bit off, and one of the notes I wrote down is like, I like the concept, but the execution is a little bit shaky sometimes. So I think they could have definitely like streamlined it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we didn't need some stuff like, I feel like we didn't need Jake and Nog saying goodbye. We didn't need pretty much any of the Quark stuff.
Yeah, I agree that you could have cut the Quark stuff, and I would have been fine with that. It didn't really add anything to the episode. I feel like the Jake and Nog character stuff was not like super additive, but at least a little bit additive. Like I liked the thing where it's like, hey, has like a Ferengi and a human ever been as good of friends as us? Even though there's no way that they could possibly know that. The fact that like, they feel like they're breaking new ground here, I felt like that was... It got a little weird when he's like, if our dads couldn't break us up. And I'm like, okay, well, you're not dating. But, I kind of see where you're going with this.
I just would have liked it if it kind of like built up. Because usually stories like this, they kind of like... And it did kind of in a way... But usually kind of like builds up to like a big climax. And I felt like that wasn't quite there. It was just like, you know, I don't want to say like a Deus Ex Machina or whatever, but that Kira just wakes up and they're in Bareilles monastery. And from that point on, it's pretty much all good.
Yeah, that was just, it's like, yes, everyone in the city saw your ship go down and my guys happened to be the ones that found you.
So like maybe if we could have had like a cool scene of them like having to sneak through the streets of the capital or whatever and infiltrate the Chamber of Ministers to deliver the evidence or something.
I mean, I would have even accepted like that. There's that moment where Kira keeps trying to get Dax to go, and Dax is like, "No, I'm not going to leave you. I'm not doing that." Which, you know, that's a very trite. Like you've seen that a lot, but I'm fine with it because, like I said, they've never had any sort of relationship before, so I'm seeing anything develop from them is good. If at that point she'd been like, "No, I'm not going to leave you," and Kira's like, "Okay, fine, help me walk," and actually, that monastery that I was staying at recently is near here. Like that would have been less of an out of nowhere convenience, even though like in reality it's almost exactly what happened. If Kira was just like, wait, that monastery is like 2 kilometers that way, and then she passes out and wakes up in the monastery. The only difference is the one line, but it feels much less weird coincidence than what happened.
It'd feel more like they're driving the action themselves instead of just like being leaves blown on the wind and eventually into the Chamber of Ministers.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, it was mentioned in a previous episode. I'm pretty sure that there are 5 members of the Chamber of Ministers.
Was it? I don't remember that, but I don't doubt you.
I think it was like maybe it was like even in like the past prologue episode or something, where they wanted to give what's his face amnesty, and it was like, well, I've got 3 of the ministers on this side and 2 of the ministers on this side.
Yeah,
or something
okay,
like
that sounds kind of familiar.
But also there were extra people hanging out in there, like Vedic Wind, so who knows?
No, I have to look up the Chamber of Ministers. Apparently it's called the Chamber of Ministers of the Third Republic of Bajor or something. Hold on, I gotta look at this again because that sounds weird. Because I was having trouble finding this, and that's because it's got this weird name. Chamber of Ministers of the Third Republic of Bajor. Yeah, okay. Well, how many ministers did we see here?
It looked like more than 5. That was just my only point.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, Wynn was in there, so maybe there's just people that just hang out in that chamber, and then...
Yeah, the wiki article doesn't seem to say.
Yeah. Just a very, very minor point I was just kind of wondering about. Also, I want to talk about the scene that we kind of brushed over, where Bashir leads the ambush on those Bajoran guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he pops out of the air duct, and then like somebody pops out of a box, and then somebody pops out of a barrel.
Yep, they were all ready for this.
So I just, like, I want to see the scene where they were setting up for that, where Bashir was like, okay, you get in that barrel, and then you get in that box, and wait for the barrel person to pop out, and then you pop out, because they'll be like, oh no, there's a barrel person, and they'll turn this way, and then you pop out. It's like, it seemed very, like, choreographed.
He's like, guys, you guys wait till I make my like snarky comment, and then you pop out, okay?
Yeah.
Like I got to get my one-liner in, and it's such a ridiculous, like it's such a dumb. Where he's like, hey, I'd be careful standing next to that if I were you. Long-term exposure could blah blah. And I was like, it's such a ridiculous thing, but it so feels like the thing Bashir would say. So like, I like it for that reason.
Yeah. Also, wasn't there a person in that thing?
There's a person in one of the things.
Yeah, I don't know. That was a very weird line. I was like, is that true, what you're saying? Or are you just like, making it quit?
It was also lucky that there were like empty barrels next to the full barrels or whatever, I guess. Maybe they planned for this ahead of time.
I have no doubt that Bashir just dumped all the stuff out and then they got in. He's like, okay, quick. Let's dump all this stuff down this shaft. It's like, oh, this is like super valuable. Never mind.
It'll make for a great moment.
Yeah. It's like, couldn't we just like hide behind stuff and pop out with our guns? He's like, no, this will be way more dramatic and effective. But yeah, anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about all the points I had to make.
One of the things also in here was that the director of the episode, Winrich Colby, he's gone on record as saying he didn't feel like this needed to be a 3-arc story. He thought that it would have been better to condense it into a 2-parter.
The 2 episodes directed by him?
Yeah, probably. Well, and honestly, I don't disagree with that. Like, I talked about how last time I felt like we weren't really accomplishing much of anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Although it would give you less time with Lee Nallis to, like, go through his arc, which I think is the only thing that we kind of get like more of out of the 3 episodes than otherwise, because like I said last time, the whole Kira kidnapping feels pointless and dumb, and like so much of it is just like I feel like Lee is the only thing that you really get, and not even that much of him. Yeah.
I was just struggling to remember even what happened last episode, but yeah, that's right, that was the whole thing where they kidnapped Kira and brought her to the cave, and I just like edited that and uploaded it too.
That's how forgettable the second part of this 2-parter was. So yeah, he says that he feels like, he doesn't specify who, but he says that somebody was just like, well, we got like 2.5 hours here, may as well make it 3.
That sounds believable. Yeah, maybe that's where they came up with this. Oh, then what's Quark doing?
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe that's why we had to add that in there.
Yeah, maybe it could have definitely used because all 3 episodes have different writers, so maybe it could have used a little bit more of a round of kind of group rewrite or whatever.
Yeah. Another writer is quoted here saying that she loves how Kira and Dax get stranded and work together. They're not talking about boys. They're 2 strong women who are trying to fix a problem, relying on their brains and skills.
I guess that's technically true.
Yeah, it passes that, like, what is it, like the Bechdel test or whatever.
Although, she mentions her Tobin Dax.
Oh, that's true.
I forgot what even Tobin Dax, what that was relevant for.
Oh, because, like, he's her previous host who had experience with those kind of engines.
Okay.
So she was using, like, his knowledge for fixing them.
That was phrased really weird. It was like, do you have any previous hosts who have any experience with this? I was like, couldn't you just ask her, like, do you know anything about this? And then, like, if it's through one of her previous hosts, she can, like, mention it.
Like, Cisco is just like, I know you don't have any experience with, like, engines, like, from 100 years ago, basically. But do you have any memories relevant to that? We get a new rule of acquisition this episode: never make fun of a Ferengi's mother, which I feel like is a weird thing because, like,
that's a very weird rule. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like it's like an early rule. It's like 31, and I'm like, didn't you write the rules before, a lot of these rules before making contact with other species? So
well, maybe the rule was like, don't make fun of somebody's mother.
Okay,
or something.
yeah. And then you just like turn that around once there's other people. Yeah, okay.
Oh, he's like just emphasizing the specialness of this rule to the Ferengi or something. I mean,
I figured that it's just like the rules say it's okay to make fun of like foreigners' mothers. Who cares about them?
I mean, it's just good business advice.
It probably is, yeah. In any given business deal, probably don't make fun of the other guy's mom if that's not going to get you where you want to go, probably.
So I'm glad to make this deal with you. By the way, your mother sucks. So it's I feel that has not helped this business deal that we're doing. I will write a rule of acquisition to address this.
Apparently, this was a very demanding episode for the special effects team. You got battles, you got odomorphs, you got all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. There's one part where, like, Odo was, like, hanging off the wall.
Or, like, yeah, he like, was the wall or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I was not quite clear. At first, it looked like he was going through the wall.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, but then it was like, no, it's just he became a torso that's sticking to the wall.
Yeah, I assumed he just looked like the wall on top of the wall, which we've seen him do with, like the inset pads on like crates.
Sure,
in fact, in the last episode or the episode before, he did the same thing. But
yeah,
so I guess this is just in a flatter area.
Yeah. Anyway, you want to jump into ratings or?
Yeah, I guess let's do the ratings for this thing. We've pretty much done all the damage we can do. I am gonna say that I really like this episode. I think I hit on that when I talked about like my overall thoughts, so I won't hit on it much more. Sure. But I'm a big fan. I didn't love the second part of this 3-parter, but overall, I think this season has started out really strong. And my only debate here is, am I going to give this commander or am I going to go up and do a captain? That's how much I like the episode.
Ooh.
And so I feel weird right off the bat for the season being like, this is going to be a top episode this season, especially since I don't remember much of what happens in the rest of the season.
You can't rate based on what might happen in the future.
Yeah, that's true.
You got to go with where you're at right now.
I think I'm going to go commander, but it'll be above the rating for the homecoming, which was also commander.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, this one's real tough for me. It's definitely better than last week.
Yep.
So I guess I have to give it a commander because I gave that a commander, which I still stick by. And one thing I'll say about this episode, when it was over, when the credits started, I looked down at the timer. I was like, oh wow, was that already 45 minutes? So that's like, I think that's usually something in favor, like a positive thing.
Yeah.
Even though like during it, I was just feeling like, okay, why do we have this scene right now? Let's like get into it or whatever. And then like at the end, it was just suddenly like, oh, well, I guess it's just over now. Like the guy just surrendered the station. So it's hard to say if I like it more or less than The Homecoming. I think I'm going to put it under The Homecoming for now. Personally.
Now, I also want to note, I guess maybe as like a last thought thing, that in season 1, we talked about like there were several Kira episodes, and there was even duet where it was basically like, this is Nana Visitor's acting reel right here. But I felt like her acting in this one was like, it felt more real to me. It did not like, and I mentioned in duet how I felt like at the beginning, especially, she felt over the top to me. Like she was ramping it up too quickly for no reason. And in this one, there's the way that she talks to Dax, where she's in this place where she's like, oh, this is the kind of shit that I used to do all the time. And yeah, it's ridiculous and it's dangerous, but this is just what we did. Yeah. And like, I feel like she plays that like just amused at how put off Jadzia is, while at the same time, like serious about like what we're doing. I really liked her play on that. And then her whole thing at the end where she's like mourning and then she's like, I don't feel like celebrating now. And she leaves. Like, it's a very subdued moment, and I feel like she really pulls it off well. And so I thought that this was the first time that I've been like, okay, she can act.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And maybe it's just because there's, like, it's not a Kira episode, so there's not quite as much pressure to, like, be putting out all that emotion all the time, and she can be more natural with it. But yeah, that's a good point. And I feel that way about a lot of the actors in this episode also. Like, we talked about Bashir a little bit, but he didn't feel like he was doing weird, goofy stuff. It just felt like he was acting like a normal guy.
A normal person, yeah.
And who else? I mean, those are, I guess, two pretty good examples.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I guess, yeah, you make a good point. It extends to a lot of people. Because I even said how, like, the Keiko and Miles O'Brien, like, argument, like, both of them feel very down to earth and real in that scene where he's just like, they need me. Like, I can't.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I all of that feels. Now, then we talk about the Jake and Nog scene, which I'm like, okay, this feels a little bit like you're trying hard, kids. But,
yeah.
But still, like, I think a lot of people are maybe it's that they're starting to feel comfortable in these roles after, they did a whole season and they took a break and now they're back into it and they're feeling a little more relaxed in them. That could be a part of it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably definitely part of it. So yeah, I guess I just keep thinking it's like, because it's like I feel like it's like neck and neck with the Homecoming for me.
Okay.
But I think part of the Homecoming was like it was just such a breath of fresh air, like opening up the new season and stuff like that. But I'm gonna leave it where it is. I'm gonna leave it like just like an inch below the Homecoming for right now. Because I just had like one too many complaint, I feel like. But it was good. It was enjoyable.
I was looking through the quotes for this episode, and it reminded me of the moment that I'd kind of forgotten, where Nog can't say coup d'etat.
Oh yeah,
and it's
like the coops did.
And that may be my favorite thing about the interaction is that end to it where it's like he can't say it, and then Jake says coup d'etat. It's French, and he's like, "Well, no stupid French thing will either." And I was like, "Okay, that's great. Actually, that's a fun line."
Yeah. Okay, ready to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Be sure to check out the description where I occasionally put links to interesting things. I'm Fletcher, about to say goodbye as Data.
Adios.
May you all outsmart the hunters for one more day, and if not, die with honor. Remember to drop by anytime you're feeling homesick. And remember, every once in a while, declare peace. It confuses the hell out of your enemies.
That's what it was. Okay.
Bye-bye. Do.
And never make fun of a Ferengi's mother.
Yeah. In fact, don't make fun of anybody's mother.
Yeah, no, good call.